didn't see transactions for like ELL, special education. If you pilot on the new SIS, how do you report that data piece?
That's the next phase.
I did see their release 1 and their release 2. We felt it was a little bit overwhelming to go to release 2 when we're trying to talk about release 1. Not that you can't handle that information, but so forgive us if we just wanted to keep it right here for right now. It wasn't that we didn't trust that you could understand it. It was trying, you know, with all the confusion, we thought we'd just go and make it as simple as we could for release 1.
But dates are an issue because for SPEDS, we have to have all that stuff in by, you know, with the October 1st census. That's not a lot of time. That's 2 months of school.
I think you'd be submitting that, like, you're still submitting to the SACE.
So that's what's still, so needs are still going to go
Yes.
through SACE.
You're still submitting, when you're doing the pilot, you're still submitting the old way through the SACE system. So all that information is still being captured. The SACE. Can you come to the mic?
Yeah.
I don't talk loud enough, I thought I was good.
No, we always make you.
You're still submitting SAFE transactions, and you're still getting credit for all your SPED, your ELL, all the other programs. We're just doing in phases the different elements because there's a lot of elements that have to go in there. This is just one portion. You still got SPED, you still got ELL, we still got the CTE, we still got all those other systems that ADE requires you to submit. The OCR report, all that stuff, all those things have to be mapped. All those things, so we have to do it in phases. And this is the first phase for the first piece of it. We're working in the back end. We have all the data elements for all these different systems or reports that you have to send in. It's just a matter of mapping them to Ed5. And we don't have that many people to do that, so it's done in phases. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, yes.
Why are they going to take SACE Online away if SACE is still going to be operating next year and say the majority of us are going to actually be still uploading our files to SACE and working with SACE? Why would they take the SACE Online piece away?
That I don't know. That was the first I heard of it this year from Mark. I'll have to take that back and find out why.
Because that just doesn't make sense to me. If we're still going to be reporting to SACE next year, why would they take that piece of SACE Online away from us?
Great question.
SACE Online is not going away until SACE itself is going away.
Thank you.
Yes, I apologize.
Mark has big, huge dreams, right? And he's wanting to, and that's good. He has a huge vision for us, right? And his vision has so far been pretty spot on. So, yeah. Writing it down.
Write it for the note.
We need to be clear.
That's why the parallel is there. You're going to do SACE and SIS. SACE and SIS.
First question, because this has plagued me from the beginning of SACE and to date. One of the things that is not a payer factor is race, and this affects me with my Native American students. Because if I identify them as Native American at my campus and they get funding for JOM and Title VII, then they go somewhere else and they identify them as Hispanic, it just kicked them out of my funding. This is one of the things that I really, really hope you're looking at this time, looking at the race of the Native American students, because they're severely underfunded now.
Yes.
This makes it even harder.
I know, that was one of the things that I brought to their attention too. A lot of the stuff that we brought up that's in all the ASCUS meetings, I brought to their attention also. So they've been picking my brain, all the different things that are going on with this stuff. So yes, I've been putting my 2 cents in as much as I can.
Thank you. The second thing that I have is those of us that have been doing this for way too long are used to going into our transaction files and looking at them. We can pretty much pinpoint where every field is, what it means, where it came from. We know where our error is. Will we be able to have that same ability afforded to us, where someone from AD will say, here's what your transactions look like, here's what this data is, so if you have a problem here, you know where to look. Because that's how I've had a lot of issues that were system errors within my SIS, because I can go into the trans file and I can see, crap, this is what's wrong.
We know how to read the
We know how to read the files. Are we gonna get some kind of instruction as to
No.
how to read these new? You don't know, be quiet. I still care.
As far as yes, we should have the same, the file formats are you're gonna have the ability to download different formats. Go ahead. I'll let Ben-
Is it time for the diagram? No, not yet.
So with the new format, what you're hoping is you don't have to live in those files, right? You just work within your SIS, and then that's all you do. And then your SIS automatically sends that data to us when you decide you're ready to send it. So
Sometimes I should send something it should not be sent.
Right, so what we're working with most of the vendors, and all of them are on board, is we are telling them how this transmission format works. And we're also educating them that, okay, how can they report, like, right now you're looking at transaction logs and telling you which field what errored out. What we're trying to do, work with the vendors and get them to do is, you don't even wait till then, right? The minute your SIS tries to send that data, and the ADE says this is wrong, that data comes to you right away. So it's available.
They take the send, even not know it. I mean, I think this happened with some of us, I think there was a field in the student view for SPED, and we sent the data to the field, and we get out right on. And even though it should have been right there, it was making you differently,
Right. Which is why we're trying to standardize data. So once all the districts have the same fields and the same, our use of that field, that should probably, hopefully eliminate that error.
Wendy, will you, for the group, they didn't hear all of Nancy's questions. Will you just kind of repeat what that was? Talking about.
What, you asked it? It was something about the SIS sending data that was wrong.
And also looking at the transaction files and knowing where the errors are. So that's what she was referring to, and I was telling her that you don't have to do that anymore. You work in your SIS, you enter your data, and you're hoping that that's all you have to do. Yes.
That's okay. She said they'll probably have trust issues with that right off the bat, and that's okay.
Which is fine.
It's new, it takes a while to trust a new something, right? Can you please, yeah.
Go and show them.
All right,
So this is what the new process has been mapped out to look like. So hopefully, it will kind of start connecting some old to some new. That's what I'm hoping. And I'm trying to get the expert here to say it so I can do it later.
So this is a very high-level view of the architecture that we have in place for the new data submission format. So state says, district says, charter says. So whoever, any system which is outside of ADE, they're going to have a standard way of interpreting, entering the data and sending the data to ADE. So ADE data collection, which says ADE EdFi data collection down there, the arrow. There you go. So everybody sends the data in the same format, and the format which I mentioned is every time you make a change, the district has validated the change, and you're sending that data. So, and this format has you don't have to wait till the 40th or 100th or end of year. This system has the capacity to make hourly changes, daily changes, nightly changes. Every time you make a change, that change can propagate through. It depends on how you control it. But the system has the capacity to make sure that you make changes, it can come overnight, hourly, weekly, or however you decide. And with your vendor, how you want to send that data to us. But, so the system is advanced enough to take, large amounts of data, small amounts of data, anytime you make a change, it can come through. And once it gets into the ADE side, it goes into a database known as the LEA data, which is the raw format of the data. ADE has not applied any of its business rules over there, so it is your version of the truth, what you have sent to us.
So let's stop there. Does that make sense? You're submitting your data right? In the new format with AZ Ed, so on and so forth. You're pushing the data. It goes over to this database that's the raw, your data. No business rules have been applied, no nothing. Double, but, okay? So then what happens, Ranjit? After it's there and it's just sitting there, what's the purpose of it sitting there?
The purpose of it sitting in there is now ADE has all these business rules. Right now they're known as integrity rules, right? So what we are going to do is integrity is also being rewritten as part of this process. We are looking at integrity, looking at, okay, how many rules are valid? I mean, there are 300 or 400 rules, but are all these rules still valid? Is the system still applying these rules even though it's not needed? So Rose has done a good job of going through all those integrity rules and make sure that only what's current and relevant, is in there. We're going to apply those rules and validate your data. And then once all the data is validated, it moves into another database known as the ADE systems, which is from where every program area within ADE will consume that data. So
Okay, let's stop, right? So we've submitted in this new format. It goes here. Nothing is, I still don't understand this. Is this just a holding tank?
that's
It's
basically
the
a holding
staging,
tank.
okay, and then it goes over to this and we apply the validation rules.
Correct.
If there are errors, what happens? Talk about this.
So all of this is not going to be there right away, but this is the conceptual view of what we intend to have out there. So once the data is validated, we are going to give you a dashboard, and we are working with your vendors on how to make sure that it's as transparent and as easy to read as possible to all the LEAs. So we're going to make sure that you get all the business rules feedback. So okay, which business rules failed and what failed, and so that it's in a format which is easy to understand and readable, and LEAs can go back and make those changes effortlessly.
So here's your view, here's you, right? Put a wig on or do whatever. Here's you, you correct it, right? And you do the same thing again. So if it comes back through, excuse me, and you have no errors, it moves into that big, huge agency-wide ODS, which is going to eliminate.
Vanna, go back to your validation process. So at the validation process, if there are data issues with some records, it's just those records that are returned, not the entire submitted data.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, did you hear that? No. Okay, say it again. Ranjit?
So her question was, at the validation process, is it going to validate, is it going to kick back only those records which have invalid data, or is it going to kick back the entire submission? And the answer is it's only going to kick back those data elements which have an error. Your entire submission is not going to get kicked back.
So does that mean, I'm sorry, so does that mean that the clean stuff is going to go over here?
Correct.
And then just the yucky stuff needs to be completed and it stays kind of in that wash cycle?
Right.
Is
And
that
the
what
re-
you're talking about?
Yeah, but see.
Maybe that should look like a filter then, and not a box.
Okay, perfect, I like that.
What we currently suffer with SACE is that if you have a transaction that has this data element in the fourth line of your record, and this is wrong, it kicks out the entire file.
Right,
So we want to
she's,
get away from
right,
that.
she's saying that she wants to get out of kicking out the entire file. And you've got to go in and find it and look through it and, pull the 71 or the whatever, I don't know your reports, but I know the 71's one. What does that mean? But right, okay, so you're only, you keep scrubbing your data, just the yucky stuff. Darla?
When does the limiting factor come in?
Ah, the limiting factor. I got my first dose of limiting factor by talking to Nancy McFarland.
So the limiting and aggregation, right, that kind of happens after the validation process. So that, and we are also, I don't know if Mark wants me to share this or not, but I'm also the project manager for that project where we are rewriting aggregation and limiting. So that's also in the works. And so that'll happen after the data is validated.
So what else?
So her flow isn't right then, because if you validate and aggregate before it goes into your systems then, right? Shouldn't there be another box?
Talk about aggregation. That means something to them.
Validate, aggregation, and then we see our true data, so it's three different things for us.
Right, so maybe this box does not, entirely represent, when it says ADE systems, there's a whole lot of other processes, but this is like a 60 or 70 foot, 1,000-foot level of.
But sometimes aggregation kicks back additional errors. Or errors in aggregation.
So, if, I don't know why aggregation would kick back errors, but you know what, since you say it does, it should. It's probably doing that right now. But what we will do is then move those errors back into the validation process, so that it probably shouldn't be sitting at the aggregation process. It should probably be at the validation process, and we'll move those business rules back into the validation process.
Well, we use that word aggregation, or somewhere in here that if it's part of the validation process,
Yep.
because that means something for our business.
I
Sure.
hear everything you've said.
Sure.
Yep, me and you are having a date.
If I understand you correctly, what you're saying, if you're with this model, when aggregation runs, there ought not to be any errors because the first validation process will take care of those errors. Is that what I'm understanding?
That is the vision, yes.
All right. So when
Did you hear that?
With this model.
We have to get there. It is going to happen, but it is not happening right now, so that is why I'm saying. So that is our roadmap, yes.
Okay, I have a question. My question with the ADE systems is, as every unit in ADE is going to extract their data from that system only, yes?
Yes.
Is IT going to be responsible for writing the programs to extract that data so that they're all consistent? Or is each unit going to do that like is happening now, and we wind up with errors on our A to F letter grades because they didn't extract the data correctly or they missed something?
So IT will be working with all the business units to make sure that they're getting data from the agency source of truth. So we have two databases, the LEA data, which is the LEA source of truth. We've run our validation business rules on them. Now it's known as the agency source of truth. And all the program areas within ADE will be consuming from that database. It's a single source of truth, and IT is also in the process of rewriting the applications of those business areas to ensure that they're consuming from the agency source of truth, and everybody's accessing the same data.
I just wanted to make sure in terms of understanding the acronyms and terms and so forth. EDFI, is that just the data extraction process, or what does that represent?
So EDFI is, you guys can look up EDFI, it's edfi.org, that's the website. EDFI is like how you have SETS, Common Educational Data Standards. So that tells you the data standards, but okay, how do you implement this, right? So that is probably the business logic layer of data standards. How is the computer terminology, So EDFI is primarily telling how the system should be built. So, and it's from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, it's based on their involvement that the EDFI standard came out, and it's being rolled out nationwide.
Does that help? So AZ-EDs are the data elements themselves, and EDFI is the process for submitting those.
EDFI is more of how do you build that computer system which can process that.
How you what?
How do you build that database and the computer system, right? How do you build that application to ensure that whatever SETS has is, exactly, the data side of it, the database side of things is reflecting.
Does that help? Because that's one of the pieces that I need help on too. Darla, Eddie.
Going back to this model here, what's the timeline on the aggregation, or what we call now aggregation, I guess you call getting all the information to the AD systems? Is that going to be real time? Is that going to be 30 days? What's the timeline?
So right now we haven't defined any timelines, but in our roadmap, the way Mark has his vision is that this whole process can be real time. Right? It has the potential and it has the technological capability to become real time. So changes are made in the SIS. It can be near real time if you decide to have that. It will come into the agency the LEA database. Our business rules will be fired right away that, okay, there's new data, let's go check that data, validate it. If there's errors, let's take it back. If there's no errors, let's push it down into downstream systems. And then, if aggregation, once aggregation becomes real time, it'll run. And, our vision is to give the LEAs a dashboard and saying, okay, what do your numbers look like as of today? That's something that we are thinking of.
So are the 40 reports then going to be real time too?
What are your reports?
The finance.
The financial reports, okay. So the financial reports, I don't know if they're going to be real time because there's a lot of, payment formulas which are applied to that, but you'll have access to a dashboard which give you a hypothetical view of what your payments might look like based on your ADM and things like that.
And is it still going to revolve around a 40th and 100th day?
We are trying to move away from that. So it can be near real. So as your submissions are real time, as your submissions are daily, then you don't have to have those 40 or 100 day views. You can have real time views.
So how is the payment system based?
So that is something we are working with school finance to see, okay, then how do we set up payment schedule, right? Like what day do you run payments? So we haven't gotten there yet. We are still trying to figure out how to get the infrastructure up and running so that we have this capacity right now. And once this part of the system is stabilized, and once everybody has a confidence that, okay, data is coming through, things are looking good, and we are confident in this new way of submission data, we can work with school finance. And I do talk to Lyle all the time, and we have conversations with Lyle saying, how do you want to set this payment schedule? And he'll probably get feedback from all of you to see how is that going to be implemented.
Sorry, one more question.
Darla.
Do you know, has there been any buzz or anything talked about going back or using the idea of the 4 days? The 15th? Rose is shaking her head. Okay.
I don't know what that means. Okay, we gotta move on. Lots of questions, I know. I'm hoping that there are a good handful of you sitting here that will be jumping on the AZ Ed's pilot. You guys are the masters. You are the ones that know what's going on. You're the ones that connect old to the new. You're the ones that can help us understand some of these things. I mean, we try very hard, of course, but we cannot take you out of this. So there are, 100 people in here. I'm hoping at least 6 of you approach us and say, hey, I really want to be part of this. I really want to help figure this out. I know it. I can be an asset to this. I'm not shaming you into trying to be that. I'm not. But, who better, right? Who better in the whole state than this group here to help figure out the process? So if you want to do that, call me. Here are some myths that I've been hearing. We won't be able to correct our data. That's untrue. The data submission process is similar. I kind of liken it to STC. Think about it, right? You've got you can't certify your STC, right? It stays in that holding tank, right? The bad thing about STC is you got to change the whole file, right? But still, it's kind of likens it to that. That's what that means. So you are going to be able, I asked that question specifically because, and Ranjit told me that, no, if you want to submit all of this, it overwrites what you currently have. Okay? So don't ask me too specific on that. All I know is that it overwrites. New process will eliminate jobs in the LEAs. That's so untrue. Data stewards are still vital to getting your data clean. ADE does not store unclean data. See, you saw that holding tank there. So you're still going to be error queens and kings. ADE is going to pull my data. Not. You will push the data determining what you have worked out with your sys vendor. We're not going to go in and grab your data. We're not. We're going to have to submit the same data twice. Well, true, so to speak. For the next year, and this is what I was telling you I was going to get to, 2015 is going to be a pilot year for hashing out the process for this new AZ Eds, AidFi, the whole bit. All other submitters, those that are not on the statewide SIS or those that have not stepped forward to do the AZ Eds pilot will still process everything the normal way. So if you're not looking to be a pilot or move on to a first-year implementer, just go,
okay? Uh-oh, what? Okay. Since we last spoke, Rose got together the statewide SIS committee that put together all of your requirements for the new statewide SIS, and they had a discussion on feedback on new state reporting processes. This is verbatim from the group that was there that day. I was there. SIS committee members, 2 areas were discussed with recommendations from you, not us, about data submission and exception reporting. So the recommendations that we heard for data submissions are submit and push data on a weekly basis. To be able to validate your data prior to pushing it to ADE, and as you saw, as we attempted, as best as we could, we're going to need your help on redrawing that diagram, I can see, so it makes sense to us, old to new. I love that. So you'll be able to validate that, right? Have options for pushing data by school, range of schools, options for pushing types of data. Now this is the big picture. Validation in data that is being pushed. Don't allow certain program data to be submitted without enrollment data first being submitted. You know, I think there's some processing rules that don't right now match, right? And so that's one of the things they were saying, don't forget to do that. Exception reporting, organize how data is presented back to you guys. Right now you have 46271 reports and 15 these and whatnot. Group all the errors about a student in a single report. It's the information that you guys are getting today is too segregated from what we're hearing. And so you want something that's more cohesive and holistic. Provide counts on types of students by need, and reports should have export capability. So those were what we heard from you. So see, it's really important to get involved because we need you. AZED's pilot. If you want to be a pilot, there's a couple of websites or a couple of emails. You can always email me and I'll make sure that you get hooked up. So if you want to, so see, we're really looking for pilots to determine the process and develop implementation plans, trainings, what does it look like, so on and so forth. What do we need? Never knew we needed the old to new. So we need that. We need a data dictionary. We need lots of support for you guys. And you'd be the one to help guide us in that. Student information system, do we have a vendor yet? No. It's our fork in the eye. Sarah and I last night were like, let's find a good fork in the eye picture. So that's what we came up with. There were some pretty grody ones, weren't there? Oh my gosh, like bloody, sticking out eyeballs and whatnot. And I thought, well, that might be too much. It might be something that they feel, but that was the most, quote, non-LC3 we could come up with. Some of the benefits of the SIS, if you're still thinking about it, there's a cost savings, hosted management of your software, 24/7 availability because it's web-based, ADE plan and extensive assistance with implementation. Sarah and I stare at each other constantly in a room about 3 times a week, 2 hours a day, 2 hours each time coming up with this implementation plan. We're going to need somebody out here to review it and go, what? Or, ooh, that's good, or don't forget this. So she's on the ball. She's going to call a couple of you guys and say, hey, when you switch from like one vendor to the next, what are all the things that you have to do? Because we want to make sure that we're supporting you in that.
Call me, email me if you want to.
You'll be change control board. Mark talked about that, right?